when 9-year-old Maya Jenkins pressed her small hand against the tinted window of an Escalade idling at a Chicago gas station and locked eyes with a man whose tailored three-piece suit and commanding presence marked him as someone who solved problems. The little girl made a desperate choice to trust someone who looked powerful enough to help. The four words she mouthed through the glass, "Please help me," set off a chain of events that would turn a Tuesday afternoon into a locked-down intersection, a standoff with two armed men, and the rescue of a child who'd been taken from a Milwaukee playground 6 days earlier. The BP station on East 79th Street in Chicago's South Side wasn't the kind of place Marcus King Wellington usually stopped. His driver, Deshaun, typically handled fuel runs for the fleet. But today, King had dismissed his security detail for a private meeting with his mother at her nursing home, and the Bentley's gas light had blinked on 3 blocks away. Marcus Wellington was 54 years old, immaculately dressed in a charcoal Tom Ford three-piece suit with a burgundy pocket square, his salt and pepper beard trimmed with mathematical precision. His hands, manicured, adorned with a single gold signet ring, bearing his family crest, had signed documents that moved millions. Those same hands had also, in his younger years, done things he'd spent 2 decades trying to atone for. The Wellington name carried weight on the South Side, not the kind of weight the newspapers wrote about anymore, but the kind that older folks remembered. King's father had run numbers and protection in the 70s and 80s. King had inherited the empire at 24 and spent the next 30 years transforming it. Now Wellington Holdings owned 47 properties, employed 200 people from the neighborhood, and funded 3 community centers. But the old reputation lingered. People still crossed the street when they saw him coming, still lowered their voices when he walked into a room, still called him King, like it was his given name. King finished pumping gas and was walking toward the station to grab a bottle of water when he saw them. A black Cadillac Escalade, windows tinted beyond legal limits, idling at the pump across from his Bentley. 2 men in the front seats, one white, one Latino, both wearing the kind of tense alertness that King recognized from his old life. The driver kept checking his mirrors. The passenger kept touching his waistband. But it wasn't the men who caught King's attention. It was the small face pressed against the rear window. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old. Dark skin, natural hair, pulled into 2 puffs that were starting to come undone. She was wearing a yellow sundress that was too big for her, clearly not her own clothes, and her eyes, those eyes held a terror that King had seen before. The terror of a child who knows they're in danger and doesn't know how to escape it. The girl's gaze swept the gas station, searching, past the attendant behind bulletproof glass, past the woman filling her minivan, past the teenagers on bikes. Then her eyes found King and they stopped. She stared at him for a long moment, assessing. King had been assessed by federal prosecutors, by rival bosses, by men who wanted him dead. But this little girl's gaze cut deeper than any of them. She was measuring whether he was worth the risk. She must have decided yes. Because slowly, deliberately, the girl pressed her palm flat against the window and mouthed 4 words. "Please help me." Then again, more urgently, "Please help me." King felt something cold settle in his chest, something that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with recognition. He'd been that child once, trapped in a car with men who meant him harm, praying that someone would notice, would intervene, would care enough to act. No one had. The driver of the Escalade glanced up, saw King staring, and his face changed. Calculation replacing boredom. His hand moved to the ignition. King made a decision that would either save this child or get him killed. He walked directly into the path of the Escalade and stopped. The driver hit the horn. King didn't move. He pulled out his phone, not breaking eye contact with the driver, and dialed a number from memory. Deshawn, BP Station, 79th and Stony Island. Get everyone here, now. And call Jerome at the 4th District. The Escalade revved its engine. A threat. King smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. You want to run me over, youngster? His voice carried across the lot, calm as Sunday morning. In front of all these cameras, in front of all these witnesses, on my block. The driver's door opened. A stocky white man in his 30s stepped out, hand hovering near his hip. Mind your business, old man. Move. Can't do that. I said move. The man's jacket shifted, revealing a holstered pistol. King's smile didn't waver. Son, I've had guns pointed at me by men who actually knew how to use them. You're not scaring anyone. Now I'm going to need you to step away from that vehicle and let me see that little girl in the back seat. She's my daughter. None of your concern. She doesn't look like your daughter. That's a racist thing to say. That's an observant thing to say. And I've been called worse by better. King's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. My people will be here in 3 minutes. Chicago PD in 5. So here's how this works. You can drive away right now. Run that red light, and maybe make it 2 blocks before every camera in this neighborhood has your plates in your faces. Or you can step away from the vehicle and have a conversation, like civilized men. The passenger door opened. The Latino man was younger, twitchier, and his gun was already in his hand, held low against his thigh. We're leaving. Move or get moved. King looked at the gun, looked at the man holding it, and then he did something that confused both men completely. He sat down, right there, in the middle of the gas station lot, cross-legged, hands on his knees, like he was settling in for a meditation session. I'm 54 years old, King said conversationally. Bad knees. You're going to have to drag me, and that's going to take time you don't have. Or you can shoot me, and then you'll definitely never make it out of this neighborhood alive. Your choice. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, because what happens next is exactly why children in danger need adults who are willing to risk everything. Comment where you're watching from. This story proves that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear Tom Ford. The standoff lasted 47 seconds. 47 seconds of the 2 men exchanging glances, calculating odds, watching as other customers started filming on their phones. 47 seconds of the little girl's face pressed against the window, hope and terror warring in her expression. 47 seconds of King Wellington sitting on cracked asphalt in a $5,000 suit, daring these men to make a move. Then Deshawn's Mercedes screeched into the lot from the east, 3 more vehicles from the north, and the distant wail of sirens approaching from the west. The men ran, not toward the Escalade. They knew they couldn't make it. They bolted on foot, sprinting between buildings into the maze of alleys and abandoned lots that networked the south side. King was on his feet immediately, moving toward the Escalade. He pulled open the back door and found the girl huddled in the corner, shaking. It's okay, baby, it's okay. You're safe now. What's your name? Maya. Maya Jenkins. Maya. That's a beautiful name. I'm Marcus, but people call me King. Those men are gone now. The police are coming. You're going to be okay. Maya burst into tears. Not quiet tears, but the full-body sobs of a child who'd been holding it together through sheer willpower and had finally found someone safe enough to fall apart with. King climbed into the back seat, gathering the girl into his arms without hesitation. She clung to him, this stranger in his expensive suit, like he was a life raft in a hurricane. I want my mama, Maya sobbed. I want to go home. They said they were taking me to my daddy, but I don't have a daddy. I only have my mama and my grandma, and they took me from the playground and I was so scared. Shh. I know, baby. I know. We're going to find your mama. I promise you. King keeps his promises. The Chicago PD arrived 4 minutes later. Detective Raina Foster was the lead, a woman King had known for 20 years, back when she was a rookie, and he was someone the department watched closely. Their relationship had evolved from adversarial to grudgingly respectful to something that might almost be called friendship. Marcus Wellington sitting in a gas station lot blocking an Escalade. Raina shook her head. And here I thought today was going to be boring. The girl's name is Maya Jenkins. She says she was taken from a playground. Those two men were transporting her somewhere. Raina's expression sharpened. She pulled out her phone, made a call, listened, and her face went pale. Maya Jenkins, 9 years old, taken from a Milwaukee playground 6 days ago. Amber Alert's still active. She looked at King with something new in her eyes. Marcus, you just found one of the most searched for children in the Midwest. 6 days. This child had been missing for 6 days. 6 days of her mother's agony, of nationwide searches, of fading hope. And she'd pressed her hand against a window at a random gas station and asked a stranger for help. Maya wouldn't let go of King's hand while the paramedics checked her over. She wouldn't let go while Detective Foster gently asked her questions. She wouldn't let go while calls were made to Milwaukee PD, to the FBI, to her mother. You stayed, Maya said quietly, looking up at King. Those other people I tried to tell, at the other places we stopped, they didn't see me. Or they saw me and looked away, but you stayed. You sat down. I saw you, Maya. And when I see someone who needs help, I don't look away. Why not? Most people do. King thought about the question, thought about his mother, who taught him that power meant nothing if you didn't use it to protect people. Thought about his father, who'd used his power wrong and died in prison because of it. Thought about 30 years of trying to be different, to be better, to prove that where you come from doesn't determine where you end up. Because a long time ago, when I was about your age, I needed help and no one came. I decided then that if I ever had the chance to be the person who came, I would, no matter what. Maya squeezed his hand. I'm glad you were there. Me too, baby girl. Me too. Maya's mother, Denise Jenkins, arrived in Chicago at 11:47 p.m. that night, having driven 4 hours from Milwaukee in a state of frantic disbelief after the call came that her daughter had been found. King had stayed at the police station the entire time, giving his statement, providing the description of the men, reviewing security footage. He could have left hours ago, but Maya had asked him to stay, and King keeps his promises. When Denise burst through the doors of the station and saw her daughter sitting on a bench wrapped in a police blanket, the sound she made was something between a scream and a prayer. Maya ran to her. The reunion was chaos and tears and desperate clutching, mother and daughter holding each other like they'd never let go again. Every officer in that station had to look away, had to blink hard, had to remember why they did this job. After long minutes, Denise looked up, mascara streaked down her face, and sought out the man her daughter couldn't stop talking about. You're him? You're Marcus? King stood. Yes, ma'am. Denise crossed the room and threw her arms around him. This woman who'd never met him, hugging this man in his expensive suit who looked like he belonged in a boardroom or a crime drama. My baby told me what you did, how you sat down in front of their car, how you wouldn't move even when they had guns, how you held her and promised her she'd be okay. Denise was crying again. 6 days. I had 6 days of thinking I'd never see her again. And you gave her back to me. How do I ever thank you for that? You don't, King said.
You just hold her tight. That's all the thanks I need." Later, outside the station, while Maya slept in the back of her mother's car, Denise and King talked. "Those men," Denise said, "the detective told me they're connected to a trafficking ring, that Maya might have been, if you hadn't. But I did, and she's safe. Focus on that. How did you know? How did you know to stop?" King looked at the sleeping child through the car window. "She asked me to. She pressed her hand against the glass and asked me to help. That's all it took. One child brave enough to ask, and one adult willing to see. The world needs more people."
Like you. The world has plenty of people like me, Mrs. Jenkins. It just needs more of them to act. 6 months later, Marcus Wellington stood at the podium of the Southside Community Center, a building his foundation had funded, in a neighborhood he'd spent his life trying to lift up. The room was packed. Local press, community members, city officials, and in the front row, Maya Jenkins, now 10 years old, wearing a bright blue dress and holding her mother's hand. "The Maya Jenkins Foundation," King announced, "will provide resources for families of missing children, fund education programs about child safety, and support the officers and advocates who work every day to bring children home." He looked at Maya, who beamed at him. "6 months ago, a little girl pressed her hand against a window and asked me for help. She didn't know me. She had no reason to trust me, but she was brave enough to ask anyway. And I want every child to know that asking for help is brave. Looking for help
Is brave. And there are people in this world who will answer." Maya stood up and walked to the podium. King lifted her so she could reach the microphone. "I was really scared," Maya said, her voice clear and strong. "For 6 days, I thought no one would ever find me. But then I saw Mr. King, and something told me to ask. My mama always said, if you need help, find someone who looks like they can help and ask. So I did. And he didn't look away. He sat down in front of the car and he wouldn't move." She looked at King. "He saved me. And now we're going to help save other kids too." The room erupted in applause. 2 years later, King's phone buzzed on a Sunday afternoon. He smiled when he saw the name on the screen. "Hey, baby girl." "King!" Maya's voice was bright with excitement. "Guess what? I made the honor roll again. And I'm giving a speech at school about stranger safety. Mom said I could tell our story." "That's wonderful, Maya. I'm proud of you. Will you come to the speech?"
"Please?" King looked at his calendar. A board meeting, a property closing, a dinner with investors. "I'll be there," he said, "wouldn't miss it." Because King keeps his promises, and some promises matter more than any meeting. The Maya Jenkins Foundation, in its first 2 years, helped locate 23 missing children and provided support to over 150 families. The foundation partnered with schools across the Midwest to teach children that asking for help is strength, not weakness. And every year, on the anniversary of her rescue, Maya Jenkins visits the BP station on 79th and Stony Island with Marcus Wellington. They sit on the bench outside, eat ice cream, and remember the day a little girl asked a stranger for help, and a man in a $5,000 suit sat down on dirty asphalt and refused to move. "You know what I think about sometimes?" Maya asked on the second anniversary, now 11 years old and growing tall. "What's that?" "What if you hadn't stopped for gas that day? What if you'd gone to a different station?" King had thought about that too. The randomness of it, the impossibility of the moment. "Then I would have missed the most important thing I've ever done in my life," he said. "But I didn't, and neither did you. You chose to ask. You were brave enough to try. That's the miracle, Maya. Not that I was there, but that you were brave enough to ask." Maya leaned her head against his shoulder. "I'm glad you saw me. I'll always see you, baby girl, That's what family does. If this story reminded you that heroes don't look the way we expect them to, that a man in a tailored suit can be as brave as any first responder, and a child's whispered plea can reach the right person at the right moment, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because Maya Jenkins is alive today not because of luck, but because she was brave enough to ask for help, and an old man was wise enough to give it. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that prove courage comes in all forms. And remember, if something feels wrong, trust your instincts. Speak up. Ask for help. Someone might be watching. Someone might be listening. Someone might just sit down in front of a car and refuse to move.